Hey everybody, it's 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning, and you are listening to Chopping It Up with Keith Saarloos. Today's guest is someone whose career arc almost doesn't make sense until you realize that it makes perfect sense. It's my friend, Shaun Cassidy. He first entered the public consciousness as a full-blown teen heartthrob. Television, music, magazine covers, screaming crowds, and the kind of fame most people never experience. And quite honestly, very few ever survive. But here's the part that matters. Instead of staying frozen in that moment, Shaun did something incredibly rare. He transitioned. He moved from in front of the camera to behind it, building a second, third, and fourth act that most people don't even know about. He became a producer, a creator of shows, and a builder of ideas. Someone trusted not just with attention, but with vision. He helped shape television, music programming, and storytelling from the inside out, evolving with the industry instead of aging out of it. That kind of reinvention takes humility, intelligence, and a willingness to start over quietly when you could have just lived off the past. Today, Shaun is still doing what he always has done best, creating, guiding, and contributing at a high level, only now with decades of perseverance, perspective, scar tissue, and clarity. This is a conversation about identity, reinvention, creative longevity, and what it really means to grow up in public, and then grow beyond it. This isn't nostalgia, this is evolution. This is my good friend, Shaun Cassidy. Shaun Cassidy, let's chop it up. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Keith. That was very far too kind. Thank you very much.
I'll read it at your funeral.
I'll just take it home and keep reading it to myself. Thank you.
Well, Shaun, let's start at the beginning. I mean, for some people, this might be an introduction to you. For quite a few people, this will be a reintroduction. Tell me about you growing up, your background, your life, the history. Like, where did Shaun Cassidy come from?
Well, I came from two parents who were both in show business. My father, Jack Cassidy, Tony Award winner, Broadway actor and singer, Emmy Award nominee, famous primarily for playing villains on shows like Columbo.
Really?
And my mom, Shirley Jones, starred in three of the greatest movie musicals of all time, Oklahoma, Carousel, and The Music Man. Won an Academy Award when she was 26 for a film called Elmer Gantry.
Unbelievable.
And then my brother David, my half-brother, started acting when he was about 17, 18. He did one Broadway show, and then he was cast in a show called The Partridge Family with my mother playing his actual mother instead of the stepmother, which
He's the original Nepo baby.
Well, maybe we all are. I don't know, but I don't have an issue with that because I think about anybody that is born into a business. Well, you're a Nepo baby, aren't you?
Absolutely.
If you learn the business from your parents and you enjoy doing it, maybe you're better at the business than somebody coming in cold. I don't know, but
And you have someone looking out for you, in all honesty.
in theory,
Yeah.
yes. Although my parents didn't want me to go into show business, and I'm not sure I would, make that the first choice for any of my kids either.
Mm-hmm.
But once they found out I was committed to doing it, off I went, and I had a pretty big opening act, but quickly discovered that I really preferred writing. I really preferred living out of the spotlight. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun to have the kind of success I did as a kid, but as you said, I think maybe the reason I'm alive is because I chose not to stay on that path.
So how old were you when the spotlight found you, I think is a good way to put it?
Well, I was on the cover of the LA Herald Examiner the day I was born, so I think the spotlight found me then. It wasn't because of me, it's because of my mom.
Sure.
And I joke about that, but to a certain extent, I'd had 18 years of being in the periphery of the spotlight by association, and had seen all the ups and downs associated with that with my parents and then David. So by the time it happened to me, I was 18. I was literally just out of high school. I'd auditioned over the summer after graduation for this show, The Hardy Boys, which was like my second or third acting audition. My first, by the way, that I almost got was for John Wayne's last film called The Shootist.
Really?
Ron Howard got the part. He was still acting then.
Yeah.
And he was older than me and clearly much more experienced. But my next audition was The Hardy Boys, and I got it. And I had weirdly made a record deal while I was in high school, and I'd started recording, and I had some hit records in Europe. They just were releasing my songs overseas. They were trying to kind of gain a foothold there so they could come to an American disc jockey who gets 50, 60 new songs maybe every week and say, hey, this was number one in Australia. But that plan got kind of blown out of the water because I got the Hardy Boys, and Warner Brothers ran to sort of put these singles I'd made overseas together into an album. They rushed the album out concurrent with the Hardy Boys, and it became the biggest selling solo debut in history.
Really?
At the time, until Whitney Houston came along to take the crown.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
I'll say.
So, okay, you're an 18-year-old kid, right? You've grown up in the periphery. You've seen fame. You've been around parties and things like that. You know, I can only assume, like, who's coming over the house, right? And then all of a sudden, you go from being, I'm not going to say unknown, but I'm going to say at that time, being on television, there was how many channels? 3?
Yeah.
Right. And we have Fess Parker is a great example of that, where Fess was just a regular person, and then all of a sudden he's on television making music, and
biggest star in the world.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so what was that transition like for you, going from sitting in chemistry class to...
If I was going to chemistry class. Yeah. It was dramatic, but I don't think it would have been as dramatic had I not, again, been on the sidelines of it for so long. In fact, again, I think if I have any ground, it's partially because my mother's a fairly grounded person, but also because I'd seen high, low, success, non-success with all of my family. And I use this analogy all the time. Like, if you come from a family of plumbers and you go into plumbing and you actually become a successful plumber, it's not such a big deal. Right? But if you're Elvis and you become Elvis, and there's no precedent anywhere remotely near that in your family, and you're making more money than your father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and every ancestor put together, it's going to sort of upset the apple cart in terms of, like, how people treat you and who really loves me and what do the other siblings think. And, it's all that stuff. Who are my friends? All those questions anybody that has immediate big success is suddenly forced to ask themselves. I didn't have to do any of that. And
it probably saved you.
100%. Yeah. All these things saved me.
Sure.
But mostly finding a passion for something that was really my own, because singing and acting, my parents already owned. And David owned. And it seemed like, again, a natural course. I could sing. I was a cute kid. I could walk and talk at the same time. And I got a TV show. Good for me. But nothing special about that in my family.
That's such an interesting concept. The only thing I could put it, akin, is your dad played professional baseball and then you played professional baseball.
Right.
You already know how to walk around. You already know how to handle yourself. Yeah. And then you kind of like, no, this is my job. This is how I punch the clock.
Or you think that's what you're supposed to do because everybody's saying, hey, you're going to play ball?
Yeah,
Dad's a great ball player. You look like a good ball player. Why don't you play ball? Okay, I guess I will. Because who knows really what they want to do at 18 anyway.
Right.
And if all the doors are opening and you got 100 people behind you pushing you, okay, I'll see what it's like. And it was fine. It was fun. It was kind of like winning the lottery. My first record went to #1. But again, David's first record had gone to #1. Right. So in my family, good for you.
Way to go.
Way to go.
Yeah.
Nice.
What do you want on your pizza tonight? You hit #1.
Exactly.
Congratulations.
Well, I'm making fun of it, but I'm not. It kind of was that way. And again, I think that's all good news because it never went to my head. I never felt like I'd done something extraordinary.
Right.
Because I hadn't. I'd just shown up. And that's the thing is, like, I took the work seriously, but I didn't take any of the other stuff seriously. And that's why it was so easy for me to let go of it. Because when I found there was another avenue, and by the way, when I was doing the Hardy Boys, I was spending way more time in the writer's room with the writers than I was on the set of the show.
Okay.
And I was just fascinated how the cake was baked. How did they do this? And they were like magicians. I mean, they came up with ideas out of the air, and then like 2 months later, 300 people have a job on a soundstage because you had this idea. That felt like magic. And I'd been a magician as a young teenager. And I loved it. I just thought that's an amazing career. And not only that, if you could be a writer, you can stay home. You don't need to be touring the world and being in the spotlight and having paparazzi chase you around. You can be kind of unknown.
Yeah.
Seemed like a dream.
Would you mind telling the story about when you walked into the producer's office at the Hardy Boys and looking around and making that transition? I love that story. Please.
Yeah. I think it's really important, whatever you want to do, that you have a model somewhere of somebody who did it or kind of did it. And Glenn Larson, who was the executive producer of the Hardy Boys, was right up there with Aaron Spelling in the late 70s, early 80s. He had a ton of hit television shows. We were at Universal. He probably had 10 shows on the air then. And
10 TV shows on the air.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Battlestar Galactica, BJ and the Bear. He'd been on McCloud for a long time, a show called Switch with Robert Wagner. Lots of Alias Smith and Jones was his first one. And then he left and created The Fall Guy when he went to 20th Century Fox. He had a lot of hit shows.
I love that show.
Yeah, good show.
Yeah. The Unknown Stuntman.
Yeah. And he was fun and funny. And he, because he was so successful and powerful, he would sometimes just show up on the set and say, "Hey, boys, you want to go to the Dodger game?" And literally in the middle of production, he'd grab Parker Stevenson and myself, and we'd go off to watch the Dodger game. And then we'd come back the next day. I mean, that costs a lot of money to do that.
Sure.
But he was fine with it. But my point about Glenn being a model is I would go to his office on occasion for a meeting to talk about something, and there'd be 10 executives sort of on bended knee out the door, kissing his ring. I thought, oh, they weren't kissing my ring. I thought, oh, he may have the better job as an executive producer, but how do you get that job? And then I walk in his office. He's got a bunch of gold records on this wall. And I thought, why do you have gold records? He said, don't you know that I was in the Four Preps? Four Preps was like a band that was in a lot of like Ricky Nelson beach movies in the 50s, early 60s. 26 miles across the sea.
I know that song.
Santa Catalina was waiting for me. He wrote that song. And he had hit records. And I thought, you made a transition from hit records to this office, producing 10 television shows? How do you do that? And he didn't tell me how to do it, but he told me how he did it. And I thought, oh, you got to write. You got to write your way in. You write your way into becoming a producer. And I did.
So how did you make that jump from, let's say, how old were you at the time, by the way?
On Hardy Boys?
Yeah.
18, 19, 20.
So from 20, right at 20, you know, when kids are still even figuring out what they want to do with their life, you were transitioning out of one career and looking for the next step.
Yes, I didn't have a road to the next one yet, but true story, I'm doing a tour right now, the biggest tour I've ever done in my life, but I took 40 years off. My last concert tour ended in 1980 at the Houston Astrodome. 55,000 people, said goodnight. Thought I'd be seeing them soon, but no, because I ended up in my 20s, staying home, had kids very young, so I was a father very young, and I think that created a level of responsibility in me that also kind of helped keep me on the ground. And just reading every book I could find, because I hadn't gone to college, and I was afraid all my friends were going to come back from college and be smarter than me. And as it turns out, they were at keg parties while I was reading Moby Dick, so it wasn't so terrible. But in my late 20s, I actually wrote a script or two, and I ended up selling one to USA Network. It was a thrilling tale about killer cats called Strays. But it became the number one movie on the USA Network in 1991.
Really?
Yeah, but it took me 10 years of sort of figuring it out and, living off money I'd, made early on and not working much. Little bits of work here in the theater, occasional auditions for big movies that I wasn't remotely right for, and mostly just staying home and figuring it out, like every kid in their 20s has to do at some point in some way, I think. And once I sold a script, I sold another one, and then I sold another one, and then I created a show called American Gothic, which was like a really groundbreaking, critically acclaimed series because it had a very, very dark anti-hero lead. And this is before Sopranos and before Breaking Bad and before The Shield and all of the shows where that became more of a standard thing.
Yeah, who are you rooting for kind of a show? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everybody loved my lead, but he was as close to the devil as a character could be without being the devil, and Gary Cole played him, and everybody loves Gary Cole. And Sarah Paulson had her first job in that show. And Sam Raimi was my producing partner, so he knew how to make the scary.
Yeah.
But once I'd done that, again, my name on the script was sort of, people didn't really know it was me, or if they did find out it was me, it was sort of like, what? How does the Hardy Boy write this show that's the darkest thing in the world? And they couldn't put that together in their head, which is like magic again to me, because now you can't be put in any lane. Like, I always think about Dustin Hoffman's first two jobs. He was in The Graduate and he was in Midnight Cowboy, playing two wildly different roles in his first two movies. Suddenly that guy can do anything as far as people are casting, are thinking.
Yeah.
And that's what it kind of did for me. Suddenly I was being offered all these different kinds of things to write, and off I went.
So we're talking to Shaun Cassidy on Chopping It Up right now. We talked about early days of Shaun Cassidy, and now we're transitioning into kind of the producership or in creation of shows. So what are, you brought up American Gothic. Can you give us just a list of the shows that you've either created or executive produced? You know,
sure.
A humble brag, if you will.
Most of them didn't last long, so it doesn't take a lot for me to be humble about them.
That's fair.
American Gothic was only on for a season, but it opened the door. Next show I created was called Roar, where we found this young actor in Australia no one had ever heard of named Heath Ledger, and we brought him over to America and cast him. And that was like a Braveheart light show about 4th century Ireland.
Yep.
Lasted a season on Fox. Created a show called Cover Me that was on USA for a year. Ran a show called The Agency about the CIA during 9/11, which was really interesting. That was on for 2 years on CBS. Executive producer of a show called Cold Case that ran for a very long time. First season, and wrote an episode, a Thanksgiving episode of Blue Bloods. There's a show people probably know. Created a show called Invasion that was on after Lost. That was, again, a critical darling that didn't last long.
I remember that show. That was a great show.
It's a cool show. I really love that show. Really good cast. Many pilots. And most recently, 5 years on a really good medical show called New Amsterdam. That was on NBC and then sold to Netflix, became the #1 show in the world. And I didn't create that show, so I can't take credit for that, but I sure had a great time working on it.
So what's your process? Is your home, do you feel most comfortable in the writing room, or do you feel most comfortable coming up with a concept, bringing it to someone and trying to get it made? What's the thing that really lights your passion with that?
All of those things.
Okay.
I mean, I love to make stuff. I've always been like that. I was a kid. I'd wake up every morning. I'd either be drawing a picture or putting on a magic show or doing a little play in my backyard or whatever. I'm a producer. I like to produce things. And it doesn't have to be me in the middle of it performing. In fact, I love it if I can find an actor like Heath Ledger or anybody and give them an opportunity and off they'll go, you know? I take a lot of pride in that. And I think that for me, you know, it's first the idea, and I'll vet the idea in my head over and over again to see if I can poke holes in it, to see if it holds its water. And once I decided that it does, I'll flesh it out into a pitch. And the pitch is its own animal. And there's a lot of writers who are great writers who actually can't talk to people in a room. They're really introverted by nature. And so that's where the old actor in me sort of comes in, and I'll do
The performance.
Yeah, exactly, in a room with people that can buy the show. And hopefully they do buy it, and then they'll pay me to write a script. I'll write the script. This is a pilot process I'm talking about, not a movie, but I'll write the script, and they'll decide if they like it, and they'll give me notes, and I'll take the notes if they're good, and if they're not, I'll try and talk my way out of them. And then I'll do another draft, and they'll decide if they want to shoot the pilot. And I've probably written, I don't know, 48, 50 pilots. And of the 50 pilots, I've probably shot 25 of them. And of the 25 I've shot, probably 12 have gone to series. That's a pretty good record.
Yeah.
It's harder now because they're not buying as many pilots. They'll buy 5 and shoot 2, and 1 will go on TV. So it's become a harder needle to thread. But again, I'm really grateful. I've had a long run, and I've gotten to work with so many great collaborators, which is part of the fun too. Once you get out of that little dark room, you get to gift it to other people, and they get to make it something that's their own. It's not yours anymore after you write the end. You know, actors come in, director comes in, cinematographer comes in.
A lot of fingerprints on it.
Yeah, but if you cast everybody wisely, it'll just get better.
Is there any one of those shows that didn't get made that you are particularly proud of?
Yes, I have I think a great, he said with all humility, fantastic.
By the way, that's why you're on here right now. I like how you're being so professional. Usually it's just me and you making fun of each other all night. This is great.
We can still do that.
We'll get to that.
I wrote a script called Frontier, which was kind of like not lost. Well, maybe it was sort of supernatural wagon train. And it had kind of a Coen Brothers tone. Like the first line in the script was a kid sitting there on the wagon with his parents, and we've seen that shot 8 million times. And finally he speaks. He says, "Are we there yet?" Which is every kid in every minivan in the history of the universe.
Instantly relatable.
Yeah, and that was sort of the tone of it. But this was like Lewis and Clark with 10 wagons, and there's a reason Meriwether Lewis killed himself, because he saw things out there that Thomas Jefferson and John Jacob Astor did not want the world to know about.
Ooh,
it's still a good idea.
It's still a good idea.
Right?
I like this. Yeah,
and this wagon train encounters all that stuff.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and there was a villain in that pilot. We did shoot it, but it ended up being. And I love the director, and I'm not going to mention his name because he's done amazing work, and he directed other things for me. But in this particular case, he directed a very traditional looking and feeling Western, like a John Ford Western.
Those are tough to beat.
I'll say,
yeah.
But that's not what I'd written.
Got it.
It was much more subversive than that, and it needed to be treated that way on all fronts. But there was a villain in it that is one of my favorite villains I've created, and I'm thinking of writing a movie just using this villain.
Got it.
Yeah.
So one of the things I wanted you to talk about was your former office. While you take a sip of water and make you choke, I just wanted to hear a couple of the old stories that from a past of growing up, adjacent to the spotlight, then in the spotlight, then going from in front of the camera to behind the camera. It feels like every time I talk to you, you have a new story that I've never heard, and I'm like, that can't be true, right? That can't be true.
So many of them are that can't be true to me.
Right.
And by the way, the office you're referring to is Walt Disney's office.
Yeah. So what was that like? So so let's frame this correctly. You were working at ABC, or would it be ABC at that time?
I had a deal at ABC
there
Disney.
We go. Yeah. And one day you show up and they're like, grab any empty office you want.
I've been, again, crazy fortunate. I've had a bunch of what they call overall deals, which is basically a studio pays you to be in their stable.
Yeah.
So you get a weekly.
You come up with a good idea,
paycheck.
they get it.
They own it, and they get a big percentage of the profits of it if you sell it and so forth. But most writers are having to work, independently and on spec. And I, having had all these overalls, have gotten a weekly paycheck whether I had a show on or not. So it was a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
They're not giving those out much anymore.
So you just go into the office and lean back in a chair and chew.
Well, they used to, like literally in the 90s, they'd pay you a lot of money just to like dream. They don't do anything close to that anymore. And they stopped doing that in the early 2000s. You'd actually need to earn your money back, which kind of makes sense, I guess. But I'd had a deal at Warner Brothers for a long time where I'd done the show Invasion, and that deal ended. And the Disney, ABC, where Invasion had been on, it made me a deal. So I went over to Disney, and they put me in a tiny little office in the old animation building on the Disney lot. And this is where all the original animators from Snow White and
It's
Bambi.
off the 101?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Riverside, I think it's off. Right by the 101 in Riverside. Beautiful lot, old historic lot, small lot. And I'm in the animation building, which is great, but my office is really tiny, and I'd been in a fairly good-sized office at Warner Brothers where I could have meetings with people. This was like an animator sit at a desk and write, and I, as kindly and gently as possible, told them, I said, look, this is beautiful, but I don't really write much in this office. I use the office to meet people. I write at home. So if you have anything that's a little bit bigger, that might have a couch or a chair or something, that would be great. Okay, we'll put you on the list. So like a year goes by, and finally, one day, this lovely lady, who I'm certain must have played Snow White at one of the parks at some point, Shaun, yes, we found an office for you. I said, really? Yeah, follow me. So we go down the hall, up the stairs, top floor, 3-floor building, I think, to a corner office.
Are you getting more and more excited as you're walking?
Yes, I'm thinking I'm going to
get a box. You're holding
a
box.
cool office. It might be as nice as my one at Warner Brothers. And I go in, and it's not just one office, it's 3 offices, and it's a big sort of conference room, a big office, and then a kitchen that's painted like Mickey Mouse red. I don't know what else color to call it. And I said, this is an extraordinary space. Who's been in here? No one for a very long time. Well, whose office was it? It was Mr. Disney's. What? And I'm like, Are you kidding? No. I said, well, no one should be in here. This should be like a part of your museum tour.
Right.
Well, we've talked about that, but we knew you were in a tiny space and they wanted to. I said, I'm honored and I'm totally intimidated. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to work in here. And I spent 4 years in that office and I really couldn't work in there. It was too much. I mean, his legend, ghost, legacy just hung over me. But what I did end up doing is giving lots of tours of that office. And I went down to the archives, which were in the basement, and I ended up kind of dressing the office kind of like he had it.
Yeah.
And, pictures here and pictures there. He designed Disneyland in that office. He gave notes on Pinocchio in that office. He had a piano where the Sherman Brothers, who'd written Mary Poppins, among other things, used to come every Friday and play Feed the Birds, Tuppence a Bag, Tuppence, Tuppence, Tuppence a Bag. And he'd have his drink, his Scotch mist. And he, toward the end, he died of cancer, lung cancer, and he was coughing a lot. He was a big smoker. And he'd have his drink and sing the song Tear Up, according to the Sherman Brothers, and I met both of them at some point. And then he'd go down the hall, and the animators who were still in the building then would hear him coughing, and they'd say, "Man is in the forest." It was the signal that he was coming, perhaps to give them notes after a Scotch mist or two.
Yeah.
But I'm getting all this history from everybody that ever was in there. And then one day Roy Disney walked in, his nephew.
Yeah.
Who I think had been on the outs with Michael Eisner at the company.
That was kind of a power struggle for me.
It was a power struggle.
What I
and he
remember.
walked in and looked at me in his uncle's office and scowled at me.
Oh, yeah.
"What are you doing in here?" I said, "I don't know."
You can't sit where he sat.
That's kind of the look I got. And I'd see him in the commissary and I'd go up to him like introduce.
They gave it to me. What am I supposed to do?
I really was like, "Mr. Disney, I swear you can have it."
Please.
"Oh no, I can't have it."
Yeah, I don't want it.
Well, I don't know if he didn't want it, but they didn't give it to him.
Yeah.
And it was a little awkward because I had such reverence for Walt, Uncle Walt. Anyway, and then other people like Karen Dautrice is a good friend, married to a very good friend of mine. Karen was the little girl in Mary Poppins, Jane Banks.
Yeah.
And she came by one day and she said, "Oh, I was in here with Uncle Walt all the time, and it was lovely, and I remember doing the movie here." And she's British. That's not just me with a speech impediment.
I'm following you.
Okay. Anyway, it was cool, but it was terrible for my work. I mean, I just couldn't do anything there.
Right. You basically were a set piece.
I was.
Fantastic.
And I was a tour guide.
Yeah.
But I was honored to do that. And by the way, the office now is all back to the way Walt had it. They had all his stuff in his desk and ashtray and all the piano.
So 2 guys have ever been in that office?
I think 4.
Okay.
Walt, his son-in-law, Ron Miller, after he passed. I think Eisner, when he came there briefly, and then he said, "This office is too small. I'm building a giant
Tower.
dwarf building."
Yeah.
And after I left, I think the guy who created Desperate Housewives, who had a deal there, was in there for about a year, and then that was it.
So from there, and we're kind of in the meaty part of your TV part of this, any other great stories of that era that you want to share? I know there's a few that you don't want to share, but
I mean, they're all. I got a lot.
yeah, let's hear them.
Well,
by the way, he's smiling at me right now and trying to figure out which one he's going to tell.
I can tell.
That's exactly what I want to see how far you'll go on this.
I'll tell you a story about a show that didn't make it but should have, because I was being too nice a guy and let too many people interfere.
Oh, by the way, we're talking to Shaun Cassidy on Crazy Country 105.9, and he's about to drop the dirt. So let's hear it.
It's not dirt.
Come on.
It's just indicative of a lot of experiences I think writers probably have in our business. So
Yeah.
I was sort of on a hot streak coming up with shows, and my agent put me together with Wes Craven to create a show. Because, again, I'd created a very scary show in American Gothic. And
By the way, that really does surprise me. Like knowing you very pretty well, that you would come up. You think of if you think of a show like that, you would think of a Tim Burton type guy who looks like a Tim Burton type guy, right? Wes Craven looks like a Wes Craven, and
Sam Raimi looks like Sam Raimi.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
But it seems so out of bounds for who I know you to be that you would come up with something that dark. Maybe you're just good at it.
No man has a shadow unless he's walking in the light.
Oh, geez, here we go. I love it.
So I think darkness and light, it's all about balance. And if you're not in touch with your dark side, your light side's not going to be real either. Yeah. So my mom's favorite writer is Stephen King. It's genetic, clearly. I'm intrigued by that stuff, and I loved Poe, and I like Stephen King. I mean, I think scaring people is like making them laugh. It's anytime you can like really evoke a powerful emotion, it feels like magic, to use that analogy for the third time.
But when you get into horror movies, it is very interesting to me that the horror movies can become a classic and they just have no shelf life. Right? If you take, how many times have we seen Dracula? How many times have we seen Frankenstein? How many times have we seen some sort of werewolf or whatever?
And seen them remade ad nauseum.
Right. But it's these stories that scare us, and the hits are the hits, and people continuously go back to them. So it feels like if you want to create something, there's two things to make: a horror movie or a Christmas movie. Because it's just
100% true.
It's just going to run forever.
There's a great book called The Importance of Fairy Tales, written by a psychiatrist named Bruno Bettelheim, which I read a lot when I was working on American Gothic. It was like, why do we as kids long to be scared? Hansel and Gretel is a terrifying story.
Oh, all of those.
Snow White is a terrifying story, and those movies are scary. The early
Hans
Disney,
Christian Andersen are pretty terrifying.
Dark.
Yeah, they're the Brothers Grimm.
The Grimm
right? The Grimm
brothers.
There you go.
Aptly named. And it's because it's how we exercise our fears. We actually face them in the form of a story or
around
a movie
a campfire.
or whatever, around the campfire.
Right.
Because everybody has it. We're all, again, dark side, you need to sort of own it. And that helps you own it and get it out. And that's healthy.
Yeah.
So, let us see Snow White. Let us read Hansel and Gretel. Let me write American Gothic. Yeah. And I had fun writing it. And, every show, Norman Lear had a great quote. He said, every show's about family. And it really is true. Star Trek's about family. They're not blood, but that's a family, right? Kirk and Spock are brothers. American Gothic was about my family, but not literally, but, dynamics. Invasion on the surface was about an alien invasion, but it really was about who's this weird stepfather moving into my house, invading my space. I didn't know that at the time, but afterwards I went, I'm writing about this experience I had when my parents got divorced.
You kind of retconned yourself a little bit.
A bit, yeah. So the show that this is all leading up to, they put me together with Wes Craven. It was very smart, also in person, not like the kind of guy you thought made those movies.
Okay.
He had been a college professor. He was quite intellectual.
That tracks.
Yeah, and interesting and funny. And I came up with this idea called Hollyweird. Basically, it was before Blair Witch. It was about 3 young filmmakers who decided they wanted to go and chase like serial killers around old Hollywood, and a little supernatural, a little ghosts and goblins stuff. They weren't cops. They weren't detectives. They were Christine Amanpour chasing a story. And if they wanted to sort of take it to the end with the camera, and just before the killer was going to kill someone, they'd bring in the cops and save them, and they'd get their crazy film, and they'd be heroes. Right?
Kind of feels little Hardy Boy.
A little Hardy Boy, a little Scooby Doo, even maybe. Okay, so
it was you the whole time.
It was me. The mask is off. Oh my gosh, Dr. Schmindel. Yeah.
Why did you shut down the amusement park?
Anyway, so I wrote this script called Hollyweird, and everybody loved it. And Fox is all excited. New Shaun Cassidy, Wes Craven, Shaun Cassidy show. And Wes doesn't direct it. I hire a friend of mine to direct it. He did a good job. He'd done some Roar episodes for me. And we cast it. And pilot comes together. Executives see it. They test it. I don't think it tests well. Testing is I could do an hour on testing.
Sure.
Have a free pizza and decide the fate of this creative producer.
Isn't that unbelievable?
Yeah.
Right?
With your dial. But so the shows were supposed to, in those days, they did this fall launch. You go to New York, Radio City Musical, all the advertising people are there. Networks are unveiling their fall season. They don't really do that anymore because of streaming and all the stuff. But we were big announcement coming up. Fox's new schedule, 1999, 2000, I don't know what it was. So right before this big announcement, the president of the network calls me and says, "Hey, Shaun, yeah, we love you. Yeah, and we love Wes. Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah. Here we go.
Here we go.
What don't we love?
Yeah.
Well, we love Hollyweird. Yeah. But, we've been talking internally. I love that sentence, too. We just feel that, can't they just be cops? Mm-hmm. What? Can't they just be cops? And then we understand why they're chasing this, and then they can arrest them? I said, yes, and you can go make Dragnet if you want. You can go make CSI if you want, but that's not what this is. This is Blair Witch. This is kids that are chasing down the scary for the thrill of it, because they think there's a story to tell. But why would they do that? And I said, why would Christine Amanpour go to Bosnia and risk her life? Because there's a story, and she's passionate about it, and she thinks there's value there. These are artists. Mm-hmm. No understanding of that from the network. Right. So they give me 800 notes to change it. They tell me we're recasting it. I have to call all those actors who think they're about to start in a television show.
Just destroy them.
But they don't want me to tell them before they walk out on the stage in Radio City Music Hall. They want to tell them afterwards. Weasels. And meanwhile, I'm thinking, I can't do any of these things. It will destroy it. It'll be awful. I won't be able to live with myself. So
You're the only man in Hollywood with a soul. How about that?
I don't know about that, but and the last thing this guy said to me, who I liked him, but he was owned by the corporation. He said, but after everything I've said to you, just hang on to your vision. Yeah, right. That's what he said. I said, hang on to your vision that I've just destroyed everything. So I got in my car, like, I'm going to go think about this. And I drove to like Arizona. I just drove. And I went AWOL for like 3 or 4 days. And they went crazy. They freaked out. Because the creator of their show, they thought, I guess, was quitting. I wasn't quitting. I just was trying to process. And can I do this? Can I live with myself if I do this? Will the show be any good? Because often when they think they're helping you, they're really not. And I came back going, that'll be a terrible show. There will be nothing interesting about that show. This show may not be working, fair enough, but I'm not going to make a worse show because you will not be blamed. I will be blamed.
My name is right after the credits.
100%. Yeah. And I said, I'm perfectly capable of dying on my own sword. I don't need your sword to die on. So I said, I'm not going to do any of that. And if you don't want to make the show, it's fine. And they didn't make the show. And I said to my agent, I said, am I going to be blackballed as some like weirdo with conviction or something? And he said, no, people will be fine. And they were. And I created another show the next year and it got on TV. But I was like, oh, this is a valuable lesson. The other thing the guy said to me, the president of the network, he said, after giving me all these very destructive notes, but remember, you're the wind beneath my wings, which I now say to a lot of my friends. And maybe you'll even hear it from me one day. Yeah,
I know what it means if you say that. Yes. So let's have a little discussion about that, because one of the things that I think is very exciting about having you here, right? 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way up to today, working constantly, coming from a family who predates you and working. And then having that, just when you have that conversation about where art meets commerce, right? And sometimes those gears grind, right? In today's day and age, with here we are in 2026, which sounds like a made up number.
2000 seems like a made up number.
When you said, back in the 90s, I'm like, a couple years ago, right? What do you think, having gone from 3 channels to 500 channels, back down into streaming, into where we're at today, kind of in, I won't say media landscape, because you're listening to, Crazy Country on a 105.9 FM radio station. Crazy Country is one of the last independent radio stations in California, and I think it's important to keep that alive.
And it's awesome, and I'm thrilled you're doing this show, and I'm thrilled Crazy Country is in our valley.
Yeah, me too. It truly is a local station, and that's why you're on here with Adam and Herthel and all these great people that have agreed to come on the show. And
again, I'm honored to be here because I don't have the legacy in this community they do, but I'm a relative newcomer. I've been here like 15 years. But I love this valley, and I think that anybody moving here from anywhere, before they decide they're bringing their LA or their San Francisco or their Chicago or wherever they're from with them, they should take a breath, step back, and actually see what the lay of the land is here.
Sure.
Because I think they'll be happy.
My dad used the term with people who move to the Valley, even though, again, as Mark Kurthel calls himself, a middle-comer, right? My dad had really great advice, and everybody understood it once they heard it. He said, "Hey, welcome. How long have you been? Oh, we just moved here. He goes, "Hey, don't bring your area code with you, okay?" And I thought that was such a nice, kind way to say, be a part of this community. Don't bring whatever you are trying to get away from here.
Yeah.
But back to the 2020 all the way through.
Yeah.
A young kid who's coming up that is passionate like you are, because you're really just a passionate person that has had different ways to express their art, if you will. What do you think? What advice would you give a kid like that? Because right now they can go out. They've got a phone that's better than any camera that ever shot the Hardy Boys in their pocket. They can write a script. They can get a couple people together. They can go film something, put something together, and release it on YouTube for virtually free, and then see if it has traction. What advice would you give people like that?
I would say first, and I do say this, I go and do classes at USC and Chapman. I talk to all the different students, the actors and the writers, directors, the aspiring editors, everybody. The first thing I ask all of them is, what do you do? What do you want to do? Oh, I'm a director. I want to writer. I said, let me give you, I think, a really good gift. Don't declare. In fact, say you're a creative. Because look at me. You don't know what lane you're actually going to land in when you're 18 or 19 or 20 because you haven't been exposed to all the lanes yet. Just get in some door. I want to be a director. I don't want to work in an editing room. Well, how do you know? And go in the editing room. If that's the door that opens. You could be the greatest
editor of all time.
Or I promise you'll learn more about directing in an editing room than you will being on a soundstage with a director. Because you see how movies actually get put together. I became a way better writer after spending time in an editing room because I'd write these beautiful, flowery monologues for actors. A good actor would just give a look. And no words required. I'd cut the whole monologue because I see in the editing room, that's all you need. And,
movies are saved or crushed in the editing room. Because George Lucas's wife, right?
It's 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Scorsese said Pulp Fiction was written linear. And it didn't work linear, and they got in the editing room and said, let's just play with time. And one of my favorite experiences is when we get a bad episode of a show, because then I know I at least get a chance to save it in the editing room, and I can be quite creative. Anyway, I would say don't brand yourself, because somebody else is going to do it for you anyway. Your agent's going to do it for you. Your parents are going to do it to you. You're a teen idol. 20 years old, first of all, a teen idol is not a job. It's not even a career pursuit. It's a brand that is applied to you.
You were selling magazines for someone else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm a teenager on a teenage-aimed audience television show, and I was popular. So I got that, heartthrob, teen idol, whatever, which is easy to throw around. Like icon is now.
Yeah.
It's my least favorite word.
Or genius.
Well, no one said that about me. But yeah, but give me time. Give me time, Keith. After this interview, I think that might be.
The definitive.
Yeah. So I'd say don't buy into what people are calling you. Keep pushing yourself to do things that are new. And the hardest one is trust your voice, because we all, I love Aaron Sorkin. I can try to write like Aaron Sorkin, but it's going to look like a poor imitation of Aaron Sorkin. So find out who you are, what's unique to you, and trust that actually that's what's going to make you cool. Because I can't do Keith Saarloos. You can. Only you can. And that's a hard one because we're not that secure when we're starting out. And artists are often never secure.
Well, if you're a secure artist, I think that's you become useless. Right. It's if I think of any great artist, and this is just my thought process, I always go back to Van Gogh. Right. Van Gogh to me is absolutely amazing because that was a time where everybody else, the Dutch masters, were painting photographic quality paintings. right? Where we didn't have a camera, we didn't have anything. And if you would walk into someone's house and you're, outside most of your life with a thatch hut, and you walked into somewhere and you would see a portrait of someone where you would almost walk up and want to touch it, it would just blow your mind. Like, how is that person there? And then you get Van Gogh, who is just...
Those don't look like sunflowers.
Yeah, exactly right. And you took someone who was addled and tormented and wrought with pain, and then started painting in a style that no one had ever seen before, and created immense beauty out of tragedy and pain. And it's like, when you get into anything, Brian Wilson, a great example of it, who you and I both very much love.
And I knew.
And you knew.
Yeah.
I listened to those songs, and all of a sudden you're like, after knowing who Brian Wilson is, I guess is from afar, in my perspective, Brian Wilson became so much more interesting, and the music became so much more interesting because In My Room all of a sudden has a whole different context, and you're like, oh, that guy was really going through something.
And like Van Gogh, there's a level of vulnerability in his work and accessibility.
Great term.
It's so moving to me. Brian was a beautiful soul, and he was taken advantage of. And maybe, if he'd had a Theo, although ultimately it didn't help Vincent either, did it? No. But those people always need a protector somewhere. And I know Vincent van Gogh's brother tried. But what was our point? What were
I don't know. We're talking to Shaun Cassidy on
Yeah.
Crazy Country 105.9. We've got about 15 minutes left, and we talked about past, kind of present, and what is your future? I know right now you're on a huge tour, coast to coast, singing, entertaining. I know you have tons of different
showgirls.
High kicks.
High kicks.
What do you have going on now? And what's going on in the future?
I'm writing. I'm working on a Broadway musical. I'm working on a television pilot. But almost 5 years ago now, just as kind of the pandemic was kicking in, I thought, impeccable timing.
I was there.
You were. You went to Las Vegas.
I went to Vegas to go see you play.
So that was one of my first. I did a couple tiny little experimental shows at Standing Sun Winery here.
Yeah.
And we, I didn't know if anybody would come. I didn't know if I'd like it. But to answer your question about, 6 years ago, I'm working on the medical show New Amsterdam, writing and producing. And an agent called and said, you should write a memoir. And I thought, let me think about that. And I looked, started thinking about my family and my childhood and all the rocks you have to turn over. And I thought, this is going to be an emotional journey if I decide to do this. But more importantly, I was spending 6 or 8 hours writing in a room anyway. And it was like, I'm going to add another 2 hours onto my day, not going out and seeing my kids and my family and my friends. And I said, no, I don't think
and a growing family.
And I have still young kids. We have 2 teenage daughters at home, and I have 5 older kids. So I've been at this a while, kind of since I got my driver's license.
Yeah, you're half a baseball team,
and I'm grateful, and it's fantastic to have a big family, but they deserve your attention. And you're locked in a room writing all day. You're not there as much as you want to be, and everything's a trade with work and family, of course. But I just decided I didn't want to spend any more hours writing about me. So in this process, I'd been talking to a tape recorder, and I realized, wait a second, maybe I can just do a storytelling show and go out and just tell stories, and maybe people will come, maybe they won't, I don't know. But so I wrote this show, and I did it for a couple of my friends. They said, yeah, stories are great, but they're going to throw things at you if you don't sing to Do Run Run,
right? Or
That's Rock and Roll, or Hey Deanie, or Do You Believe in Magic, or whatever the hits are that they know. And I said, well, how do I weave those songs into these stories that feel very authentic to me now, because I'm a storyteller. That's been my job for 30 years. And they said, well, you'll find a way. And I kind of did. And again, I didn't know if people would want that, but I didn't want to go out and try and pretend I was 20 and put on satin pants and shake my butt. So I thought maybe the stories will carry the day. And they did. It ended up working. And then I did a different version of it.
I learned more about you
on that stage.
It truly was, because it was watching the best version of you, I think is a good way to put it, where you're performing, you're excited, you're happy to be there, but you're also sharing a lot about your history and kind of what you're doing now with some musical interludes in between, and kind of breaks it up. And you're like, hey, this is pretty good. Wow, you did that? That's pretty amazing. You know?
Well, it is. It's not quite a Broadway show, but it has a narrative like a Broadway show.
Yeah,
and the songs
it's
are supported. It's constructed, definitely. And so anyway, that sort of caught fire. And then agent said, why don't we do like a real tour when New Amsterdam is done? I said, what's a real tour? He said, like 6 months. I said, I'm not going out for 6 months. And he said, no. You go out like 2 weeks a month and come home and see your family and your kids. I said, okay, well, I think I can do that. So I'm about to start the 5th month of this 6-month commitment of a tour called The Road to Us, which is singing and storytelling. And it's been a tremendous success. And I'm really liking it, and the people seem to really like it. So I guess I'll keep doing it.
I think you're playing this down, honestly, as your friend, because...
It's been a genius success.
No, let me throw a few flowers at you.
All right.
Because how many nights have you already done?
Probably 45.
45. But you're also doing something where a lot of people their tours are getting cut short, or nights are getting cut.
Yeah, it's a rough time to be touring right
It's a rough time.
I've learned that too.
And you're adding nights.
Yeah, I mean, they're not all sold out, but we're selling out a good
Well, I'm just
bunch.
throwing some flowers at you.
All
I
right,
think you
well,
should
thank
deserve
you.
it. I know you can't catch them, but
I
there
think
you go.
I think there's a big novelty component involved in my tour, because people, again, haven't seen me in 40 years.
Yeah.
And I said earlier, I love having models for things. I kept trying to find a model of somebody who was doing what I was doing and then stopped at 20, and then, I'll just start up again at 60.
Right.
There wasn't one. I couldn't find one. So I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if anybody's going to come or care, or if they're going to want to hear a story, but they have. And more importantly, and this is my secret sort of purpose-driven reason for doing it, we're also isolated now because of social media and computers. And
Yeah, we're trying to break that.
getting people in a room, if you can do it for any reason, almost, that's not destructive, if you can get people together to have a shared experience, and if music is the conduit, or art, or dance, or a church, whatever it is, I think you have to do it.
Yes.
And
if you want to if you would like to bring that level down of mental turmoil that it seems like every single person in this world is suffering from, the best way to this is a multiplayer game, right? If we are in community,
and humans are pack animals,
absolutely,
and we are not meant to be isolated. And on the heels of the pandemic, people adjusted to isolation in a very unhealthy way, I think.
It became preferable.
Well, yeah, it is preferable for a lot of people, but they don't realize how it's hurting them.
Correct.
And I see how it helps people. Not that I'm doing like a tent show revival or anything, but there is a feeling of like, release among the audience. And the audience, a lot of them were kids when I was doing concerts back in the day. But there's a lot of kids in their 20s too, because the Hardy Boys has been on like Peacock for 5 years or whatever. So they come and see this guy that looks like Joe Hardy's father. But they seem cool with that, and they love the songs, and they really love the stories, because I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about all of us.
Yeah.
I'm talking about family. And I've discovered the more specific you are about your life, the more it lands on other people. You speak generally, it doesn't quite have the same power, but if you're really honest and open, and a lot of my shows are very funny, and a lot of it's quite emotional. And so they go on this ride that by the end, they're like, they had no idea that was what they were going to get.
Correct.
And it's better.
Yeah.
And it's been better for me. This may be the most satisfying thing I've ever done, because it's a full circle experience. And you can go to ShaunCassidy.com and get your tickets if you'd like to go. There's my plug. You
know, one of the things I of all of my friends, I always say, if I'm friends with you, there's something about you I greatly admire. And you and I
feel the same about you.
Well, that's very nice. But the thing I admire so much about you is your commitment to your family. You have a beautiful wife, great kids.
I feel the same about you.
Yeah, that's how kind of we became friends. It's like our kids kind of grew up together, and then there's some big tall kids walks through my house, and I'm like, "Who are you?" And they're like, "Oh, I'm Cassidy," and you go, "Okay." And as that kind of progressed, and our kids grew up, we got to know each other a little bit better. And the thing that is really, I've never been able to put a pin on you, because sometimes you're working on a show, and sometimes you're singing, and sometimes you're doing this. But even in this conversation, you have a very unique ability to skate where the puck is going before the person who has the puck even knows where it's going to go. And I mean that in a nice way, because what you're doing now today did not start 20 minutes ago as a response to people being in isolation. The fact that you were working on this and getting it ready to go, then people went into isolation.
Yeah.
And then when you brought it back out of mothballs a little bit and said, hey, let's go to town on this thing, people were ready to receive it. And I'm the first person to say, absolutely great show. What you're putting on is therapy for a lot of people. And they get to have a little bit of nostalgia. They get to learn a little bit. They get to have a great time. And when they leave, they're smiling. And as I like to think, if you go to the movies, the movie is the 2 hours you sit there quietly. But really, the whole point of going to the movies is getting in the car with 3 or 4 people, going out, having dinner, getting a drink, go watch the movie, then drive home and talk about the movie. And all of a sudden you had 6 hours and you were like, that was a great event. Let's go do that again sometime.
You have to see this. Those are the words that make a hit movie. You have to see this. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying I'm making a hit movie, but I would say follow the responses on like social media for the show. And it's not like, oh, he's so cute or whatever they want to say about me at this point. It's, you have to feel this experience of this show, because it's not what I expected.
Yeah.
And if he just sang songs, I'm giving sort of an overview, but that seems to be the general consensus. And the other thing is, when I was a young guy, I didn't have a lot of guys coming to my show. I mean, there were guys who liked the Hardy Boys, but...
Oh, cry me a river.
But now there's a lot of men coming to the show. And I kind of secretly have written the show for the guys, because I know a lot of them wanted to beat me up in high school. So to be able to like say, guys, it's okay. See, we can laugh and have fun. And, I had zits and girls didn't like me in high school. So I if you had that experience, I relate. Anyway, I'm grateful, and I don't think there's anything unique, though. I think most artists can read the room. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like,
or at least have their antenna up.
Well, yeah, they're intuitive about. I don't know. I didn't know there was going to be a pandemic. I didn't know people would be even more isolated. But I felt that maybe it was selfish. I wanted out of the room. I wanted to get together with people. And again,
that's interesting. Now that you say it, you were stuck in a room and you wanted to get out of the room.
I felt like Rip Van Winkle. I really did, because I went in my late 20s, started writing, and I kind of came out at 60 and went, what? That was quick. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm happy to be out.
Well, Shaun, I thank you for giving us your time today. I really appreciate it. I love hearing the stories. You're a great person, because any party I go to, I know you leave, I can leave, and my wife won't get mad at me. You and I both like leaving parties early.
Well, we're introverts who play the role of extrovert well.
Very well. Well, thank you, Shaun. This has been Chopping It Up on 105.9 Crazy Country, one of the last independent radio stations in California. This has been Keith Saarloos. Come see me at Saarloos & Sons. We got wine, we got cupcakes. Follow me on Instagram, Saarloos & Sons, SAARLOOSANDSONS. And if you have someone with an interesting story that lives in the Valley, reach out. Send me a DM on Instagram or come by the tasting room, and we'll put you on the air. Thanks
Go
for
Pirates. Go Pirates.
Go Pirates.